Hello and welcome to the EvoScale Alpha demo. There's a lot of features that aren't functioning right now as the product is in alpha, but this should give you a quick idea of what it's capable of and what we intend to do with it and what you'll be able to use it for once beta invites go out. So you can see here my dashboard is just looking at a summary of what we've got set up. I have 4 servers here, which is to say 4 Linux servers running HA proxy, and those servers have a total of 4 online backends and 2 offline backends. Those are upstreams in HA proxy that it's picking up. This is my usage for the day, some statistics here. We've got 4 online servers, like I said, 2 offline backends, etc., and some messages and whatnot. So the first piece of this is servers. These are servers that are running our clients, or also known as HA proxy servers. You can view them, edit them, things like that. So if we have a look at our ADC server here, you can see its category, its host name, memory allocation, cores, things like that. And we've obviously followed the installation instructions to install the client on there. There's no changes required to firewalls or anything like that. It just runs a thin client on the server which communicates with our cloud service and receives instructions like that. You can put the servers into groups and things in order to issue commands to entire groups or for ease of use, etc. So the first thing to see is stats. Once it's deployed, it starts to pick up stats from the HA proxy daemon running on all of the various servers. This is an overview for all of the servers, well, the 4 we have. Here you can see some of their information, their throughput. Requests only shows if you're running HA proxy 1.6, which we're not in this situation, but your bytes in and bytes out, HTTP responses, any errors that you've had, and so on. We can see server-specific information as well. For example, here we've got a server Dave with no online backends and 1 offline ones. Here we've got that ADC test server, and you can see a couple connections, things like that. So we can go into that, for example. And this is showing us this information the most recently fetched within the last 5 minutes. So we can see its traffic, HTTP status, any errors. Here we've got 1 backend, it's online, when it last changed, all that sort of thing. It's idle time and so on. You can switch to a live monitor view. This fetches this information every 10 seconds, so it updates the whole time. So you can obviously see we have a very simple setup. If you had a more complicated one, it would be fuller here. And this will update every 10 seconds. Here you can see it updating. We've actually got a connection now, and so on. And you can also view graphs for this. So this is the same sort of graphs, but for this specific server, which you can see, as I said, is running HA proxy 1.5.14. So we don't have requests, but we do have bytes. We've got some HTTP responses here, so you can see how many 200 responses, 300 responses. Seems like we've had 1 404 there, a couple there. Well, hopefully just 404s, no errors. And yeah, here you can see no request, response, or connection errors. And that's just looking at a specific server. You've got the same view as well, obviously, for a group. Like I said, you can stash servers into groups, so we can look at all of our hosted servers, for example, on the system. See their combined graphs and stats and so on. And we also have an error view where you can see if there have been any errors and things like that. So obviously we don't have many, but we do have some error lines on this server that we can get. This is the last bad request that was sent through. So you can see here an invalid request was sent, and so on. Recipes is the next section. So recipe is essentially just a shell script which you can deploy to the server. So if we have a look at this shell script here called reboot, and all we do is run reboot, but I'll show that on this VM that we have running here. If I issue that server, that recipe to that server, which you'll be able to see me do now, we should see it reboot straight away. So in this way you can select which servers you want to run tasks on, whether you want to do updates, make changes, whatever, and do a once-off run. If we deploy now, we should see that service go down. And yeah, there it does go down. So that'll reboot soon and it'll come back online, but the system should have picked up that it's offline already. So if we come here, we'll see an offline server. Yeah, there we go. And we'll only be looking at the most recent information now, obviously, because we're missing the ability to connect to it, but it'll come back soon. The next section is configs. These are much more involved, much more advanced. They let you keep copies of entire configurations, which can be many files, symlinks, and commands that consist of a configuration. And you can have multiple of these configurations running at any point in time and attached to servers. So anytime you update them, they automatically deploy and so on. I can show you that now, though. So in this example, we've got sysctl settings. The file sysctl.conf in etc. Obviously, you have tweaks and things like that, performance settings, but it's a good example of a file that's used in many places. So we have one that we want to use across all of our various servers here, and if I edit that, you'll see I've said that it comprises of this file, etc.sysctl.conf, with these entries in, and that afterwards it should run the command of sysctl-p, which reloads that file. So if we deploy this to a server, it will overwrite that file and run that command. And we can do that now. We could say time in the past, so that it runs right away, but we could schedule it for a specific time and say that yes, we want to proceed. So that will now run that config essentially on that server, which will mean deploying all of the files and running all of the commands. Now what's great about this is that we can say that we want to attach these systemctl settings to all of our servers. So here you can see these 3 servers, we've said 4 servers, we've said yes, attach it to those servers. Anytime we make a change to that config now, it will automatically apply it to all of the servers straight away. So that's great because, you know, our systemctl settings, if we make a tweak, we don't want to have to log into hundreds of servers and make the change. We just want it to automatically deploy. And so that will happen anytime we make that change. You can also add a new config, obviously, which has a couple of options here. You can import a config. So let's say we've just started using the system and we want to use a config from an existing server. Here we can say Dave's config, and we're going to import it from the server Dave and go to step 2. This is going to get a quick list of the HA proxy directory just to make life easy for us from the server. We rebooted that server. Let's just check when it comes back online quickly. But that's a good example of it not working because the server's currently offline. It's probably just about to be online again. Yeah, okay, great, it's online now. Let's add the config, do an import, it's Dave config, and from server Dave. Okay, great. So here we can see we've only got 2 config files in there, but I can just add the HA proxy config. And I could specify paths to other big configs that I needed included, for example, you know, whatever I might want to define this server as a config, and I'll then say import. That'll fetch that config from that server for me and put it into a config bundle here called Dave config. So we can see it's got 0 files right now. Obviously you can see here that it's going to be run soon, but it should happen very quickly, so we shouldn't have to wait long. Yeah, there, it's got 1 file now, and we can manage that, and we can now edit this file. So we've imported the file, but you know, can now run it on our own and do whatever we want to do with it. And we can then deploy that config to other servers as well, or attach it. So we could deploy this Dave config to a server at a specific time, or we can attach it to a server. So in a typical situation, what you've got is you've got a couple of different configs, and you've got a couple of global configs. So systemctl settings, for example, you might have running on all of your servers because you want them the same, whereas some load balancers might have different configurations, different templates, things like that. But that's a general look at what the system can do and how you can deploy configs and manage them and how you get statistics and see things like that, etc. And thanks for listening in. We look forward to having you try the platform.